Hello everybody and welcome back to CWU Live. I'm Michael Walker and it's good to be here again to learn more about some of the industrial issues the union is handling right now. And to help me do that is someone perfectly placed, CWU General Secretary for Postal, Martin Walsh. The postal sector is the biggest part of the CWU, what it's most famous for. Today I'll be talking to Martin about later starts in deliveries, news on the proposed universal service obligation changes, new entrance terms and conditions, takeover talks, and how the union is progressing the campaign to reconnect with members in the workplace. Crucially, we'll also be taking some of your questions. Today's show can only start in one place, though. This week it was made public that David Stankham, a CWU member and postal worker at Southport Delivery Office, was the father of one of the beautiful young girls, Elsie Dott, who was brutally murdered in the town on the 29th of July. There has been an overwhelming and heartfelt wave of emotion on the CWU social media pages and in workplaces across the UK. The pain being felt by David and his family is just unimaginable. And we ask you now to join us in a moment's silence to mark the life of Elsie Dott Stankham. So, Martin, welcome to the show. Difficult place to start. I know you'd like to say a few words about this tragedy.
Yeah, Mick. Look, our sort of heartfelt sympathy to David and his family and all posties in Southport who have experienced what is an undoubtedly tragedy. Where we're trying to support David. I know Royal Mail's trying to support David, but this is sort of a massive moment. Poor Elsie, poor the other children in there, and it's times like this the whole union comes together and supports such a tragedy. And I know everyone who's a CW member, branches, divisions, would all want to pay their respect to what is undoubtedly a tragedy for David and his family.
Yeah, just an absolute tragedy. I know Dave Ward and Martin will be visiting the office. I also know the local North Lancs and Cumbria branch as well have been supporting both the family and the workers at Southport. We also have a GoFundMe link in the chat now where you can donate to help raise funds to mark the life of Elsie Dott. You should be able to see that GoFundMe link on screen now. As I say, really awful news. We'll move on though to talk about sort of other aspects of the union. And let's begin with network changes and later starts, because I know this is something that's annoying lots of people sort of in the union. I think when the timing of this session was first announced, people were saying some of us will still be working because of the later starts, especially people in Scotland. Could you talk about the latest on later starts and extended work days?
Yeah, so obviously all the later starts have been introduced, and the range is from obviously no start to a maximum of 90 minutes. In Scotland, they have the later starts along with, I think it's 53 units in London and some units elsewhere. And what we agreed was an enhanced PIR process for Scotland, and we also agreed a national post implementation review for the rest of the country. We've met with Royal Mail on Scotland, so it ran for 6 weeks. We had a meeting on Tuesday. Our reps on the ground in Scotland believe we can move start times, in particular around Mondays, Tuesdays and Saturdays. They believe work's getting into the offices, it's clearing, and there should be some movement. We're now going to drill down to each delivery unit and obviously try and push a review of start times and early finishes. Now, what will also happen is we've got to be mindful there'll be another review after the peak period, after the Christmas period. So it's what we can move them now, and we're determined to move them because we believe the evidence is overwhelming that we can. It's how much we move them ahead of Christmas. So communication-wise, our members in Scotland will hear a lot more about this over the next 2 or 3 weeks. In terms of the rest of the UK, again, the evidence is clear. In a lot of places, work is getting into delivery offices much earlier than basically they predicted. Not everywhere. There's still some teething problems in there. But we're again, the evidence is showing to us, and I've just finished a divisional reps meeting with all the divisional reps across the UK, and their feedback is there's definitely an opportunity to reduce the impact of later starts. And again, that review for the national ends the end of August, so we will get into those talks. But in Scotland, we've already had one meeting. The next stage is to really drill down to each office to determine what can be done.
Yeah, we've got some questions from CWU members sent in, and one of them was about late start. So this is Slim from Putney.
My name's Salim from Putney. Just wanted to know about the PIR, any changes or any events because of the new time changes. As it's quite light at the moment, but work is starting to pick up at the moment, and we're finishing later every day. And winter's coming along, so we're going to be even finishing later. So we're going to be finishing more in the dark. Also, we've not heard anything to what's happening. Even if there's no changes, we'd just like to know what has been discussed, if anything's been agreed or anything that's been put in place. Because at the moment we're kind of in the unknown, because all we've been told, it's a later start, and that's it. We've not heard anything more from yourselves. The last time we heard anything from yourself, when you came to our office over 6 months ago. And so far, I just want to know what's going on, because, we've all got lives to live. Our job, we work to live, not we live to work. It's just, we just need to have a better work-life balance, and we just want to know what's going on.
So my apologies. I said that was Slim from Putney. That was obviously Salim from Putney, so I got the name wrong. Obviously, sort of, this is a very emotional topic. I know. I was chatting to your colleague Chris earlier, sort of saying one of the reasons this is really sort of shifting people's life patterns is because they were used to working quite early, ending relatively early, so they could go for the school run. And this is really sort of dramatically changing people's work-life pattern. Also, sort of, seem to be some suggestions there that people wanted a bit more communication. I mean, what can you say to Salim?
So what I'd say to Sam and everyone else, you got to remember where this come from. This was on the union initiative. Royal Mail had served notice on the use of planes. It's not on an agreement with the union. And of course, what that does, once you serve notice on use of planes, all that work has to come by rail and road. And in the majority of occasions, because they've just obviously served notice on rail, it's going to come on road. So it's going to get into the offices later, and therefore Royal Mail's original proposal was to move everyone later by 3 hours. The union got an agreement which says it should be 60 minutes and only by default 90 minutes. We've also put in things like seasonal variations whilst we undertake the post-implementation review. So everyone would be finishing basically at least 15 minutes early in terms of that. And we've also given everyone the opportunity to take a 10-minute break between wave 1 and wave 2. So everyone could, if they introduce those two issues, be at least 25 minutes off their current start times. And the post-implementation review will take place. It's a 12-week process from the 17th of June, and that review will determine whether units can move back. Now, we have got a variety of reasons why there's some units like Putney have a more later start than others. The first, obviously, in Scotland is the distance from other sort of mail centres, and obviously it takes time. In the London ones, like Putney, it's because the time they have roughly earlier start times than they're normally used to do across Royal Mail. What we've got to do is make sure Sam has some certainty. Salem has some certainty in where they're going to go. I think in terms of Putney and places like that, there's no reason why that work can't get there earlier. And that's part of what we're going to be working to. And in terms of communication, it's fair pushback. I've done now 2 or 3 of these. I've communicated with all the divisional reps and all the branches who should communicate to yourselves. Like obviously myself and other national officers can't always get into places like Putney. There's 1,200 odd units. I was in Edinburgh North West a couple of weeks ago talking to members around their start times. So we're trying to get out there, but what I would say is we will communicate. I've got that as an action point. As soon as we've had the first national PIR, we will communicate where we think we are across all the offices. In terms of Scotland, we are producing the communication to the Scottish members around the enhanced PIR. And we will look at doing that elsewhere when the national one's up.
Just remind me very briefly what PIR means. I know that loads of our viewers are much more...
Post-implementation review. So they've introduced network change.
Yeah.
We are now reviewing that after it's been introduced.
It's a different meaning of post. See, I was confused because I was thinking post as in the post as in postal, but post as in after the implementation review. That's what was confusing me. Let's go to another question. This is Wayne from South West London.
Hi Martin, this is Wayne from Southwest 14. I've been in the job a long time, and with stuff that's happening now with the USO and the takeover, I was wondering if we've still got the union's still got the influence that we once had, or if it's diminishing it. So if we can still fight these things that are going on in the job. Just a small question for you.
So I think that might have been quite a large question for you, but a significant one. So the question there about universal service obligations, or USOs, so this is something I'm also learning about. So that's the 6-day sort of obligation that the Post Office has, or the Royal Mail has, to deliver to every address in the country, relied on by millions of individuals, thousands of businesses, also lots of jobs rely on it, of course. So I suppose, can you give members any update on the universal service obligation? I suppose also what influence you feel the union is having in representing members on this?
Wayne's question is very good, because I think there's a perception by some people that the union's influence has wavered over the dispute, and some people would say the agreement wasn't that popular. I would say to Wayne, we have massive influence over both the USO and the takeover. We're in further talks with Royal Mail on the USO change on the 27th of August. I'll give everyone an update where we are. But we've also met Daniel Kaczynski, we've also met the Labour government. We've met, obviously, our lawyers have met with Daniel Kaczynski's team, and we're going to meet again I think it's a week of September sometime, where we're looking at trying to reach some kind of way forward with the potential new owners. So I would say our influence is still very strong. We speak for 100,000 people, and I think what Royal Mail must recognise is they tried to break this union during the dispute. They tried to break our members' voice. Didn't work. It nearly put the company into administration, and now they recognise they have to talk with the collective voice of the workers, which is CWU. Where are we in terms of the USO? Well, every other postal carrier in the world is changing the USO, and there are 2 types of how you change a USO. Some countries, like Belgium, have just cut the frequency. So in Belgium, they are now only delivering 3 times a week to mail. Others have reduced it to 4 days. And then the other method is the speed of delivery. So there's a couple of options on speed of delivery. There's what Germany's just agreed, where they want to come off planes. So Germany's a much bigger country than the UK. Coming off planes, they have to delay first class. So they push first class mail back a day so they can actually come off using airplanes and fly mail around Germany. And that's their change, which obviously has an impact. What Royal Mail are proposing is something different on speed of delivery. So there's 7 billion items which Royal Mail currently deliver. In the highs of 2002, that was 20 billion. And since privatisation, Parcels has reduced, the Royal Mail share of Parcels has reduced from 73% to 34%. So you can see a decline in that. So at the moment, 7 billion of items are being delivered across Royal Mail system. 550 million are first class items. And approximately 1.4 billion is parcels, small, large, tracked specials. And then 5 billion of items are what they would call non-priority items. So they're downstream access, they're second class, PPI, meter, economy mail, and that takes up the 5 billion items. What their strategy is to only deliver to half the walks in the UK on the non-priority items every single day, Monday to Friday. So if you had 2 walks in the office, one would get all the non-priority items on a Monday, the other walk would get it on Tuesday, and then they rotate Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. First class would be delivered to every walk every single day, including Saturdays, along with small parcels and large parcels. So they estimate there is a potential saving of upwards of 300 million on that model. What that model is also showing in the talks, it increases the amount of Saturdays off for people. And that varies from 1 in 3 to 2 in 3, depending on the office and the size of the office. And it also shows that it increases the amount of full-time jobs. So an office like Bristol South, they have 67% of full-timers. The modelling shows it would increase to 79% as part of that. Now, we're working through a lot of, obviously, changes, and obviously there'll be negotiations around the impact in jobs, the impact on hours, etc. But what we're conscious of, our members in a lot of offices are frustrated they can't clear now, and they've got unmanageable workloads. They see walks not going out, they see vacancies, and they see quality going down. What we're determined to do is to make sure if there is a change to USO, that work is achievable and quality is high. And that's part of the challenge we're going to have. Clearly, Royal Mail's finances aren't in a great place, which is why people like Daniel Kaczynski is looking at buying Royal Mail. But the reality of the situation, what we've got to do is whoever owns Royal Mail is there's going to be a change to the USO. And we've got to make sure it works for our members and it actually works in terms of quality as well for the customer.
Yeah, and I can see how you're in a difficult position because obviously, I mean, the shift to email is presumably the biggest change that's happened to postal services everywhere. But when you say it's going to save the company £300 million, is that essentially, does that mean job losses? I mean, what does it mean if it's saving them £300 million?
So I think there's 2 aspects to this. One aspect, yes, there will be a reduction in routes, and that will obviously make a saving. The second aspect is Royal Mail, unless they get a bigger share of parcels, they will continue to lose.
Yeah.
So their share of parcels, so two aspects of parcels, track 48 and 48-hour parcels, second-class parcels. Royal Mail's share of that is dominant. They're the dominant player in the market. They own 2/3 of it. Their growth, they can't grow much further. On 24 market, first-class market, they are a minority partner. They've got less than a third of the workload. Their growth is basically, the opportunity to grow is massive. However...
Is that just so, that's when people get DPD or Every and that?
Yeah, and however, this is the problem for everyone, is that work cannot connect with the current times we go out on delivery, even later starts. That work is being delivered anytime from early afternoon up to 8 o'clock at night. And that's a growth area in terms of parcels.
Yeah.
And unless we get in that market, we're going to continue to see the core decline. Because the other aspect in this, and obviously Labour may do something about this, is lifestyle couriers. Every got bought the other week by a private equity company. They've instantly slashed their prices on parcels to attract more from Royal Mail. And the reason why they've done that is they've got lifestyle couriers, self-employed, which can be done cheaper than obviously our members. And what part of the New Deal for workers is to try and make sure we get away from self-employed sort of gig economy contracts and make sure they paid proper money, which in case Royal Mail can actually start winning some of that work back.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, there's a number of things here. Company don't really survive without a change to the USO, but Royal Mail needs to grow, and we need to have jobs in that PM area, which obviously will see more money coming into a company, see better terms and conditions turned into our members. What we've got to convince people is delivering in the afternoon is safe, and there's an appetite to do that.
Yeah.
When I came into the job, we had parcel force hadn't been set up then, and parcels were done in the afternoon anyway. What we've got to make sure is that growth, we're doing it with Royal Mail people rather than self-employed drivers.
Yeah, and I suppose I can already see a tension there because you've got lots of people who are, upset that they're now working later. You're saying actually one of the ways that Royal Mail can increase its market share is by so there's a difficult tightrope to sort of walk.
There will always be deliveries on the core, and we're determined to try and reduce the impact on that. But there is a market which, if Royal Mail don't grow in, then this company, whoever owns it, is going to be weaker. And you're going to see more and more parcels go to self-employed drivers.
Really fascinating. Let's look at some news that's broken this week. Slightly different topic. So it's the end of an era. Final customers bid farewell to Manchester institution dating back centuries. This is Manchester's last Crown post office, which has now been shut forever. I was reading about this today. I have to say, I'm not sure I've been. I haven't spent that much time in Manchester, but apparently it's got very beautiful murals. I saw some pictures of those today. And this seems like a very sort of modern Britain story. It's being shut down because Bet365, so the gambling website, own the building and aren't renewing the rental contract. So we're letting a gambling website shut down a national institution, essentially. 19 workers are affected. As far as I understand, it's also left a bit of a hole in the city centre. And we got a statement from CWU National Officer Andy Fury. He said Post Office senior management have deliberately allowed the decline of the Crown Office network, including the much cherished Spring Gardens office in central Manchester. This is clearly an obvious case of mismanagement aimed at cutting costs, reducing service quality for the public, and ultimately leading to job losses for our members. This is more evidence of the ongoing scandal within the Post Office today. They simply don't know how to do the right thing, driven by a prevailing culture to destroy everything that is good, including this wonderful public service. The government should replace the discredited board and CEO with people who are determined to rebuild the Post Office. So I suppose I'd read that Manchester Evening News article that sort of made a big deal out of 365 or Bet365's role. Andy Fury here seems to be sort of pointing the finger more squarely at the board of the post office. What do you think is going on here? Do you have any comment on this closure?
Yeah, look, it's just not that closure. We were dealing with the closure in Clapham the other week. We've seen basically post office destroy the Crown network and do it over some time. You've seen the Horizon scandal, the same board. This is mismanagement on a scale which we've never seen before. Mm-hmm. There was never a future for Pole when the government separated Royal Mail and Pole. And we still think there will be a future. Post office, yeah. We still think there will be a future if the government, the Labour government now, brought post office and Royal Mail back together. Mm-hmm. And we believe there's, that link was always there, and it was a retail arm of Royal Mail, and it should be brought back. Yeah,
because I suppose in a way that should really be the competitive advantage of Royal Mail and Post. That you can go to the post office, you can pack. It's not because the problem with lots of these sort of self-employed ones is you have to wait at home, you miss it, etc., etc. Having that network of post offices should be the edge, the USP, the unique selling point at the Royal Mail. Let's go to another question from a member, and this is Ez from Battersea Delivery Office.
Hi Martin, my name is Ed from Battersea Delivery Office, a union member. I know you're fighting for the new terms and condition for a new entrant. Do you have an update, please?
So before we go on to answer that question, we're going to be taking audience questions. So you guys watching right now at the end of the show, if you would like to come on Zoom and ask Martin a question live, drop us an email at cweb@cwu.org. So that's cwebb@cwu.org. So that question was about terms and conditions for new entrants at Royal Mail. I know people are worried about sort of two-tier workforce developing. And what can you tell members like Ez?
Okay, so the history of this, Ez will know, Royal Mail imposed the new entrants' terms and conditions during the strike period, and they did it on the basis of two things. They wanted obviously a cheaper workforce, but at that stage our members, the current members, didn't want to be compelled to work Sundays. So they brought in this contract, new entrants, and since the 1st of December 2022 there are now 17,000 new entrants. And the attrition rate is still quite high for them, and there's hot spots in places like Scotland is a hot spot for attrition, the South East and also South West and South Midlands. Now we've been in discussions with the company over a couple of things. Clearly we would want to remove new entrants completely and improve their terms and conditions to the old grade. Royal Mail isn't in that market at the moment, and they're saying they haven't got a problem recruiting. They say that for every vacancy they advertise, they get 10 applicants. Their issue is around attrition. So they, as you probably know, in some offices they're offering up to £3,000 if the individual stays up to 18 months. And we think the issue is much wider than that. So if you look at the national rate in terms of new entrants, the hourly rate is only 57 pence more per hour than the national living wage. And Labour have already confirmed they're going to increase that national living wage. It's £1.13 more than the minimum wage. So you can see there's a massive gap in that regards, and we're determined to improve the new entrants' terms and conditions. In terms of London, where obviously you work, in Battersea, I think is outer London, if I've got this right, and we got inner London. So the difference between the two is they put in new entrants on just a London rate, neither inner or outer. And again, I think it's £32 more the old contract gets than the new contract. And in inner London, it's £66. So it's no wonder the attrition rates are much higher. And what we're determining is things like they don't get new entrants is a delivery supplement. 99% of these people come in on a delivery job, and the old contract gets £29.65 delivery, which obviously they get as a permanent addition to their basic pay. The only difference is not pensionable. And we believe new entrants should get that money. We also think RIS, recruitment and retention money, where instead of paying people $3,000 to stay 18 months and then they leave on the 19th month, you're better off paying a recruitment and retention money, which other people get for staying. So we think that's something which we should be doing. And on top of that, we're looking at obviously things like they don't get the Christmas bonus. So there's improvements we think we can do. And on shift payments, there's no difference between new entrants and legacy. I think the old new entrants are actually on a slightly higher shift payment, only by pence, a few pence, and annual leave is the same. The two real glaring issues is the hourly rate, and we're determined to try and improve that, and we're in talks on that issue as well. The other thing which obviously we're in talks, which is linked to this, is Royal Mail have been saying to anyone who increases their hours or transfers to another unit, or like they want recruitment of vacancies, you have to then go on to new entrants terms and conditions. That's not acceptable to us, because these are loyal people who've worked a number of years for the company, and they should stay on their current terms and conditions. So we're in negotiations over that issue as well.
We're getting into lots of the nitty-gritty around terms and conditions for Royal Mail workers, which is great. That's what we're here for. Let's take a bit of a break, though, from that and talk about an international news story very briefly. Then we'll be coming back to all of these concerns in one moment. Elon Musk and Donald Trump took part in a call on X this week, formerly known as Twitter. In the clip we're about to show you, Trump praised Musk for his adeptness at slashing the workforce at companies he owns. And now after this clip, you'll see some commentary from two of my colleagues at Novara Media.
I think it would be great to just have a government efficiency commission that takes a look at these things and just ensures that the taxpayer money, the taxpayers' hard-earned money, is spent in a good way. And I'd be happy to help out on such a commission.
I'd love
if it were formed.
Well, you're the greatest cutter. I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, "You want to quit?" They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike, and you say, "That's okay. You're all gone. You're all gone." So every one of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it.
You are the greatest cutter. You will love. You are great. You will love it. Okay, you are the greatest cutter. By the way, this time next week, Donald Trump will be at some event. Here we are. A lot of people are saying it. I am the greatest cutter. Well, he said it was Elon Musk here, so remember that one when he pulls that out of his ass. That was possibly a reference to allegations that workers at Tesla and other of Musk's companies, although that's a publicly listed company, have previously been fired for attempting to organize at US sites. And it earned both men a lawsuit from the United Auto Workers Union, one of the largest in the US. It's filed federal labor charges against Trump and Musk for what it calls their illegal attempts to threaten and intimidate workers considering strike action. And UAW President Shawn Fain said this: "But when we say Donald Trump is a scab, this is what we mean. When we say Trump stands against everything our union stands for, this is what we mean. Donald Trump will always side against workers standing up for themselves, and he will always side with billionaires like Elon Musk, who is contributing $45 million a month to a super PAC to get him elected. Both Trump and Musk want working class people to sit down and shut up. And they laugh about it openly. It's disgusting, illegal, and totally predictable from these two clowns."
There's a reason why there was a mention of unions specifically in this conversation, or at least references to unions even tangentially. Elon Musk admitted before, when he officially did this kind of Zoom meeting where he said, I am now endorsing the Republican candidate, and he specifically said the Democrats have been captured by the class action lawyers and the trade unions. Now, you can just tell from the way in which Elon Musk talks about this, that he is scared of the kind of action that Tesla had in places like Sweden, for example, where the Swedish workers had this really long, really drawn-out union dispute with the Tesla manufacturing plant over there, which was broad scale. There were sympathy strikes all across the country to try and ensure that bits and pieces of Tesla cars weren't delivered to the factory. And so Elon Musk is clearly really kind of put upon by trade unions in a way that he was kind of aloof towards before. Of course, every capitalist despises unions, but Elon is a bit of an idiot, so I don't think he really truly knew what was going on in these labor disputes when he was only doing business in the United States. Having to deal with that in a European country has made him really, really angry at the idea of trade unionism.
So I was going to say, I thought that was going to be a sort of, in a way, it's a light-hearted story, but obviously Trump might be the next president and Musk is the richest man in the world. So the fact that they both hate trade unions isn't necessarily a light-hearted story, even if they did make idiots of themselves. Back to the Royal Mail. I know we've got a couple of people who are phoning in a moment. So while we set that up, I want to know from you about the Royal Mail takeover talks. I know you've met Mr. Krasinski recently. There are rumours the process has been delayed in terms of this takeover. What's the latest? What can you tell CWU members?
Yeah, I don't think it's been delayed. It was always going to be the National Securities Act was going to be activated because that's the protocol. We're due to meet Daniel and his team again. I think it's in September. And obviously we're going through that process of consulting them. We've also met, obviously, Royal Mail, if Royal Mail are still the owners, and we've met the government as well. So, our position, which was supported at our conference, is twofold. One is basically we don't think the current board have a vision for the future of Royal Mail, and obviously been mismanaged. We don't think it's right that a private equity firm buys Royal Mail. But in the absence of being renationalised, we've got to deal with both of those options because our members deserve to be represented, and we've got to obviously talk to both. So we're looking at, as we've always said, if Bidco is taking over Royal Mail, we want a stake for our members in the business. We want legal guarantees which protect and including extending the no compulsory redundancy clause, stopping outsourcing, stopping breaking up the company, franchising, etc. And we're looking at a new governance process where we would be much more involved in basically creating the ideas rather than just be presenting the ideas. And then they've already gone through the shareholder, gone through to market. So we're working on that, and we're going to meet obviously them again in September. And we'll communicate more after that. Is it certain to go through? No. Is it probable? Possibly, yeah.
And how does it work? I have to say I'm somewhat new to this, but sort of if someone wants to buy Royal Mail, what leverage do you have? If Kaczynski just puts up the money and then Royal Mail say, yeah, we accept it, you can buy it. I mean, what's the process by which you can intervene?
So there is no process. So let's be honest. If someone had bought Royal Mail, who wasn't a private equity firm, then they would have bought Royal Mail, providing they got the shareholders on board. Mm-hmm. And when you get to 90%, it's compulsory purchased anyway. We can't stop that. In the same way. When there was enough votes in the government to privatise us, you couldn't stop privatisation. Yeah. What you got to deal with is what is the protections for the workforce, and that's the talks we're having. You can't stop a takeover. Look, they've got to go through certain hurdles. So they've got to go through the National Securities Act. That's going to take some time, and they've also got to go through. The EU, because Daniel Kaczynski owns a stake in basically Holland Post Office and GLS. So there's a number of things which have to be going through. What we've got to do is make sure if it does take over, we've got enough protections, we've got enough involvement, and therefore we've got a vision for the future for our members.
Let's go to some questions which we've got in via YouTube. Christine Dixon is worried that she says you haven't said anything about changes to the USO performance targets. Let's talk about that. Again, this is, you might first, if you explain what a USO performance target is, just for my benefit, because I know most of the viewers will know already.
So what you've got is first class quality of service and second class quality of service rates, which Ofcom obviously endorse. So first class, it's 93.5 next day, and for second class, it's 98. Royal Mail, I haven't achieved 93.5 for a number of years, and I think they're in the region of around 77%. So that, they haven't achieved it for quite a few years, and this is where Ofcom continue to fine them. I think Royal Mail would say it's no good you continuing to fine us without changing the USO. We haven't got the money to invest to deliver all the quality. So they're in a sort of spiral with the Ofcom. Is quality going to change? I think there is a discussion around quality, isn't there? Because in the rest of Europe, Germany in particular, they have lower quality of service. I think they have around 85%. And do we want to go down that route? I think there's pros and cons on this. If you reduce the quality target, then the impact on later starts would lower. You could potentially make sure that later starts are addressed, because you're not delivering the quality of 93.5 or trying to deliver that. So there is pros and cons in this, but at this moment in time, that debate with Ofcom really hasn't basically taken off. So what Royal Mail's looking from Ofcom, there's two decisions. So any USO change doesn't need the government to approve, because they want to delay downstream access from day 2 to day 3, and second class wouldn't be delivered on a Saturday. Those are the two amendments they're looking at. At this moment in time, they're not putting forward a reduction of quality, but I think those discussions are being had.
I think we've got someone on the line. I think Luke Lyles. Hiya, Luke.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
I can, but I think our production team will need to put it on the speaker because Martin can't. But could you tell me where are you calling from?
The Isle of Wight.
From the Isle of Wight? And what's your question for Martin?
Well, roughly my question is, best method late. I'll get some sort of feedback or something. My question is, along the lines of the island, obviously we have no Amazon driver, so we have to do all the parcels. If we're going to have later starting times and we end up working in the dark, how does that work in the sense of if people fall over and trip, if women get attacked? I mean, is this going to cause problems?
So sorry. First of all, sorry for the feedback. We'll work on that for future shows. But really important question. So someone calling from the Isle of Wight, saying that they don't have Amazon there, so all the parcels fall to the Royal Mail workers. And I mean, this seems like a repeated theme actually, which is people are really worried about working into the evenings. I suppose, how would you? Would you reassure people about working in the evenings, or is that something you should be fighting, or are there sort of modifications that can be made so that people feel confident that they're safe working in the afternoon and evening?
Yeah, in terms of Luke's point, the branch, Portsmouth district branch, have raised the Isle of Wight problem consistently, and it is whilst obviously we've concentrated a lot around the impact in Scotland, the impact obviously getting that work across to the Isle of Wight has also had an impact on later starts. Again, there is some evidence there could be some movement on that. In terms of getting dark, we are conscious of that everywhere. It is difficult. Obviously in Scotland, it can get dark very quickly in the winter, and we're conscious of that. And we need to address these issues to make it safe. When I started, you used to go out in the morning dark, and it wasn't light for some time. We've got to make sure things are safe, and people are obviously looked after. In terms of your point, I would probably, Luke, ask one of the health and safety reps to go and do an assessment in the Isle of Wight. Obviously, a post-implementation review might reduce your later finishes in any case, but I think before winter, we've got to have some solutions around what is the risk if you're delivering work after, after 4 o'clock at least.
Let's go to a couple more questions from the YouTube. And we got a couple which are somewhat related. So John Fickett says, what's happening with the false economy of inferior terms for new starters not lasting 2 minutes, and those that stop are coming out with comments like 10% less pay equals 10% less work. And then a related question from Ken Howard, who says, can we have some clarification on new entrants contracts, and was it agreed? So was that agreed to in the first place?
I did cover new entrants in some detail, but just new entrants contracts were never agreed with the CW. They were imposed.
Oh, because you said these are imposed, yeah.
They were imposed by the company. And during the talks, we were at a point where we were arguing they should become aligned to the old contracts after 3 years. Royal Mail was saying 5 years. What stopped that was when Royal Mail declared they would have all been on DC, a defined contribution pension scheme, and then they would have been put into the new scheme unfunded, and it would have jeopardised the funding of the new pension scheme. So in the end, we got the words in the agreement that we would continue to work. We would look at whether it's a new grade. Like I said earlier, the new entrant terms and conditions, is, I think, indictment for Royal Mail that it's only 57 pence, the national rate, more than the living wage. And if Labour, I think they said over the weekend, are going to increase the national living wage, that's going to obviously reduce further. And, in our view, we do need to improve the new entrants. Will we change them completely? Not yet, I don't think. And there are problems because we're back to the old contracts didn't want to be compelled to work Sundays, so someone had to come in and do Sundays, which is why Royal Mail introduced them, and dedicated parcel routes later in the day and potentially PM parcels will also mean people have to do that workload. So therefore we won't totally change them. Our aim is always to totally change them in the future, but it's around improvements now, and obviously using things like the USO to see whether we can get further improvements for new entrants.
And we've got a very different question now. A comment from Facebook. Brian Tall asks, postal workers are a good front line in keeping an eye on the elderly, knowing the rounds. Could the union put pressure on the government to change its stance on winter fuel? And so the reference here is to, I assume, the Labour Party's decision to begin to means test the winter fuel allowance. Currently it goes to all people over 65 in the country. I assume from this winter it's going to just be people who are entitled to certain benefits. Is that something the CW will be campaigning on or trying to exert pressure?
When I heard the question from Brian, I thought it was around the expanding role of postal workers. So that's within the agreement where we want to find further work over years to stop the gap of declining letters and declining parcel share. But in terms of Brian's point about the winter fuel, I think there was better choices for Rachel Reeves to make than cutting winter fuel, and I think the union would support a change of that policy.
And then in terms of, because you've piqued my interest now, in terms of that expanded role, what would that look like? Because obviously, we've got an ageing population, a bit of a loneliness crisis. The fact that we've got postal workers, they've already got an obligation to, go to these people's doors potentially every day. What else could they be doing? Delivering prescriptions or sort of checking up on people? What would that look like?
Yeah, there's a multi-billion industry in pharmacy goods. There's obviously the social care, where families live so far away and checking on people. All of those things are being done elsewhere in Europe. And
by postal workers?
By postal workers. And now, we're not saying that should be done overnight. What we want to work with metropolitan mayors like Andy Burnham, is there more work we can have? And if we can, what does that look like on the ground? Because sadly, let's be honest, the share of parcels Royal Mail have, and I know this might sound funny to people because wherever I go, people think they've got unachievable workloads, and therefore they don't think they can take anything on. And I get that, but letters are declining. The share of parcels are declining. Revenue's declining. 40% of all letters now is in the cheaper economy price. It's not first class or second class. So revenue's declining. How do we maintain full-time good jobs in the future? And this is where growth comes in. PM Parcels is definitely a growth area where more revenue can come into a company to protect jobs, and expanding the role of postal workers is part of the agreement. Why don't we do a pilot in 1 or 2 metropolitan areas, mayor areas, and work and see how that would work? Before we deploy anything, it may not come to much, but there's a lot of models across Europe around social care, questions, making sure people are protected, and pharmacy, where you could grow revenue.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and it's the decline of letters clearly does create a problem for an industry like this, and looking for new solutions makes a lot of sense. I suppose at the same time, there does seem an obvious tension. You've said there that when you go around the country, lots of people say they've got a workload which they already can't manage.
Yeah.
So how is it the case that people have these high workloads while revenues are declining? And if people already have high workloads, how would postal workers getting new roles not just put them even further sort of underwater?
Yeah, I think and I often have this conversation with people, I think postal workers are working harder than they ever have done. But is there less work than there used to be? Both of those can be right.
And how can both of those be right?
If an office used to have 100 jobs, 100 walks, and they now have 50, well, those postal workers still working, are working harder than they ever done. But is there total work loss? Yes, there is. And that is really the engagement. Plus the other thing is, if a postal bag, say we had a delivery bag, and this is going back to my time, was worth £500 10 years ago, because of economy mail, because of downstream access, that bag might be only worth 250.
Yeah.
And those are the two positions sometimes our members don't see.
Yeah,
which is why the company is obviously not in a financial position at this moment in time, where obviously they're still losing money, and which is why more and more reductions are coming in.
And at the risk of asking a very basic question, presumably it's more difficult to deliver a round of parcels than it is a round of letters.
Yes.
If you're thinking of sort of what you're lugging around. So if there were a lot of first-class letters.
It's also more economic to deliver letters and parcels together. The problem is, as most people know, parcels are becoming bigger and bigger, and some you can't get in a van. And therefore they're being delivered on their own, which is more costly.
Yeah, and also has a lot of traffic around.
Yeah.
So that's we were talking about this earlier in terms of a big argument for the Royal Mail sort of having these jobs instead of Amazon is that you won't have these delivery trucks sort of speeding around roads constantly because it's just one delivery and you can do it all at once. We'll wrap up in one moment. Let's end on a very challenging question, because I know you're very good at taking these challenging questions. Cash is King says the CWU just rubber stamp Royal Mail's proposals. So that's that's a real challenge there. How would you respond to that? And then we'll wrap up.
See, I think those kind of things are just they're a lack of knowledge. And so you look at the agreement, they wanted to compel people to work Sundays. No one had to be compelled to work Sundays. They wanted 3 hours later starts. The vast majority are starting less than 60 minutes. They didn't want any delivery staff to have a finishing time. We stopped all that, and seasonal variations was a replacement of it. There are, literally everything which is in that agreement has been mitigated. And the reason why, I would always say that agreement isn't flawless, but was better than the alternative, is this company would have tipped into administration. And administration would have meant we would have lost over 30,000 jobs overnight. Only 14% of what we deliver now are covered by the USO. So no government can use state money to prop up a private company. Every other carrier would have run to the High Court saying, you're using state money. We would have lost 30,000 jobs overnight at statutory redundancy pay, and that would have been the start, not the end. So when people say to me, the union just agreed everything, that's not true. And that's not the way we do things. Yes, it wasn't the greatest agreement in the world, but it protected and delivered pay. Delivered on pay, delivered on the escrow money, delivered on the 500, which all of that would have got people's strike money back, which they went out on strike. Now, I'm not saying I've gone on strike over 39 years, loads of times. I never looked at trying to get the money back because the battle was always about what is going to come out of it. And that was a crucial battle for the union. We've got to reconnect in the workforce, but that agreement kept members in the workplace because Royal Mail ultimately wanted to move all the large parcels to a separate workforce. They haven't done it. And we've still got no compulsory redundancies. We're still engaging on the USO, we're still engaging on the network, and we're still engaging on the takeover. So I would not accept that question at all.
And hopefully this show can be part of reconnecting with the workforce. Yes. I mean, you seem like you are very open and willing to answer tough questions. Of course, as well, hopefully we'll set it up so we can have more of you sort of calling in live. We want some fiery debates and conversations on this show. But that about wraps it up for this week. Thank you so much, Martin, for joining me. It's been a real pleasure, very interesting conversation. As always, we really appreciate you being here and supporting us. So if there's a question you'd like answered by anyone at CWU, something or someone you'd like to see on the show in the future, or perhaps you wanted to share your thoughts on things so far, you can comment down below this video. We'll see you again next week. Until then, stick with your union.